Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Isabel Wong.
And I'm Edna. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Justice Secretary defends her department's decision not to seek independent legal advice for misconduct case against Leung Chun-ying.
Coroner's court says marathon runner who died 4 years ago may have had a different outcome if he had received treatment faster.
And British Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal fails in Parliament, leading to a no-confidence motion against her.
Justice Secretary Theresa Chang said it is not usual practice for the Justice Department to seek independent legal advice when making prosecutorial decisions.
She was defending the independence of the department in the Legislative Council today, after it decided not to prosecute former Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying for misconduct. Riley Chan reports.
Unless a case involves a member of the DOJ, there would not be outside counsel being engaged.
That was the Justice Secretary's Boxing Day message to the media after her department dropped its bribery investigation against former Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying without seeking independent legal advice. Following her statement, lawmakers, academics, and even some executive councillors called for Chang to elaborate on the Justice Department's decision. She did so at the Legislative Council today. Chang said there were 6 conditions where the DOJ would engage an external counsel, including when addressing possible perception of bias or issues of conflict of interest. Civic Party legislator and barrister Tanya Chen questioned why this did not apply to Leung's case, since Chang had worked with him for 6 years from 2004 to 2010. There is a clear legal definition of conflict of interest and bias, so in this particular case, the department believed it was fully capable of making a prosecutorial decision, Chang replied. The Justice Chief also rejected the notion that it was common practice to seek outside advice in cases involving top officials. She pointed out that the department had only engaged a third party regarding one case in the past 3 years. The former Hong Kong leader was accused of corruption after receiving part of a $50 million agreement from Australian engineering firm UGL after taking office and not declaring the payments to the Executive Council. But the ICAC dropped the case last month following a 4-year investigation after the Justice Department concluded that there was insufficient evidence to prosecute. Chang refused to disclose the legal principles behind the decision to drop the case, saying it might lead to a trial by public opinion, but maintained the decision was made independently and fairly.
The independence of the Department of Justice in controlling and handling prosecution matters are actually guaranteed under the Basic Law, Article 63 of the Basic Law. And we are not to be subject to any interference. If that principle is not upheld and safeguarded, then we will be swaying one way or another by the influence of the general public or the media, and then we will not be able to follow the rule that is set out in the laws and how we're going to assess the evidence.
Chang will appear at another electoral panel meeting later this month to further explain the department's prosecution policies. Riley Chan, HKIBC.
4 years after a 24-year-old marathon runner collapsed near the finish line, the coroner's court ruled today that the man had died from natural causes.
But the coroner said the outcome could have been different if he had received treatment faster. Yupina Ng reports.
Family members of Ng Chuk-yu walked out of West Kowloon Court today after hearing the coroner's court verdict.
最大嘅責任係喺醫療輔助隊身上咯。
Fighting back tears, Anais blamed the auxiliary medical service for her brother's death during a marathon 4 years ago. She accused the first aid group of not providing prompt treatment after he collapsed a few hundred meters from the finish line. We think about Chuk-yu every day and night. His life was too short, Ng said. Ng Chuk-yu, a 24-year-old trainee engineer, joined the 2015 Standard Chartered Marathon's 10-kilometer run. He was a first-time participant, but he never made it to the finishing line. Wong was rushed to hospital and was certified dead the following day. An inquest concluded today that he had died of natural causes after suffering a heart attack. But coroner Wong Wai-kun said there could have been a different outcome for Ng had a defibrillator been used sooner. Wong said the runner had first received CPR from an auxiliary medical service volunteer following his collapse. A paramedic who arrived later did not use a defibrillator on Ng right away. The paramedic performed CPR on Ng for another 2 minutes before using the device, as required by the Fire Services Department. Wong called the requirement over-scrupulous. The coroner gave a list of recommendations to the service and the marathon's organizer, the Amateur Athletic Association. He said first aid providers should increase manpower and the number of defibrillators near the marathon's finish line, even though there were over 100 first aid providers and 10 defibrillators at the event. Wong also said the association should distribute health tips to runners earlier so participants can make the necessary preparations. He added that the font on health warning information provided by the association was too small and should be made larger. In response, the service said it respected the court's ruling and would study the judgment carefully. It also said it would enhance its equipment for next month's marathon. The association said it would look into conducting health surveys on participants at future sporting events. Yupinam, HKIBC.
Turning overseas, British Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal has crumbled after lawmakers